So in the next part of the lesson, I'm actually going to get started with our frame-based animation from the fish we drew last time. So I just want you to take a look at my timeline and see that there's a lot of different keyframing things going on here. And why don't I just play that for you real quick. Again, this is only a 48 frame animation at 24 frames per second, so it's only 2 seconds long. When I did this, I did not worry about it matching up to make some beautiful looping, to make a continuous animation. I just really wanted to get in here and to start plugging away at the different keyframes to make a fairly decent animation pretty quickly. So I'm going to hit the return key, and here's my animation. Very nice, right? Again, Disney, if you need any help, let me know. Here's our animation. One thing I do want to point out looking at this is, you know what, let's just add some looping and let's see if we can't loop that around. Because notice that the body is jumpy. It's got a lot more drastic changes from one point to the next. I want you to take a look at the body layer and notice the size of the frame spans here. So I'm going to select the body layer. And notice there's big frame spans. Each one's maybe 10 frames long from the different movements. So the longer the frame span, the choppier your animation. As opposed to the right fin and left fin directly below it, notice that we've basically got a change in artwork at every single frame. Let's move that up. So the littler the movements, the smoother the animation. And this is where keyframe animation can get extremely tedious. So I'm going to get us started kind of doing the same thing here. And once I get done with that, I want you guys to continue on your own and to finish up something similar to what I have here. So frame-based animation, where do we start? Well, we know that we had our artwork broken onto separate layers because we wanted to control it separately. So that's a good thing. Whoa, let's move that back up. I'm just going to move my artwork up here so we can see it. Going to start, I guess, with the top fin. In order to modify that top fin layer, it's got to be unlocked. And so remember when we're doing our animation, new piece of artwork, everywhere there's a new keyframe to create the illusion. A lot of still pictures strung together equals the animation. So actually, before I do the top fin, I think I'm going to unlock the tank, mountains, coral, and sand because I want to work within 48 frames, and I'm going to just extend those frames, make a nice long frame span for those layers across the whole thing. So in my mountains layer, for instance, I'm going to try to find frame 48. So nice big keyframes there. And again, right click and insert frame. Remember, by inserting a frame, you just extend the life of a current piece of art. By inserting a keyframe, you create a new piece of art that's the duplicate at that point in time. So I want to insert frame because I don't need a new piece of art there. I just want the mountains to live. In addition, I want my coral to live for 48 frames. There's not going to be any animation. I just need that static art there. And right click on the sand. And of course, we need that tank to live that the whole time as well. I did this first just because when I start animating the pieces of my fish, I know kind of the parameters of where I'm going to start and stop. So again, I said I'm going to start with the top fin, so I'm just going to select that. And why don't I zoom in a little bit here so we can see this a little bit better. Before I start doing anything, I'm going to basically just transform this from keyframe to keyframe to make it happen. So I'm going to make sure when I do that, I just move this little white circle with the transform tool down to the center so I can make it sway back and forth. Right? So it's going to start in the center, and I'm just going to start this one so it's fairly choppy. And I'm going to take the top fin, and maybe at frame 6, I'm going to insert a keyframe. Again, by inserting a keyframe, it extends the life of that. Just for a reference point, I'm going to unlock the eyes layer and extend that also to frame 48. because the goal of this top fin is going to make it sway back and forth between the eyes. So it's going to start straight, then at maybe, I'll go back to 5 frames. Notice how I did that? Click and drag a keyframe to move it, and you can change the space of the frame span between one and the other. So that's fun. So I'm just going to maybe just to keep it easy, nice 5 frame chunks here. It's in the middle, frame 5. Let's go ahead and just use our transform tool to rotate it a little bit. I'm going to make sure I extend this 5 frames as well. So on frame 10, I can either right click and insert a keyframe to extend that and make it live there, or let's just go ahead and select that keyframe, change how the art looks, go there. Or remember, you can always option drag a keyframe and drop it on the next spot to create a duplicate there as well. So now let's just go back here to the eye. So basically here's my animation. I'm going to scrub. Maybe I'll turn my looping on again just to see this little piece of the animation, this first 15 frames. Boom, 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 boom. Again, it's choppy. There's a lot of space in the frame span between the start and the finish of the life of each piece of art. If I want to make that a little bit smoother, we've got to make sure we've got more keyframes and less frame span. So you guys go ahead and finish up the rest of the top fin, and you get the idea here. The eyes layer is something pretty interesting because I'm going to try to make my eye blink a little bit. Again, remember, each keyframe is a new piece of art. So if I want my eye to blink, I'm just going to maybe say around frame 15 I want the eyelids to close. Well, first, if I make any changes to the current art that's on the stage, I'm actually changing the art that's at the first keyframe. So first things first is I need to insert a keyframe there to make sure that it's a new piece of art that I'm changing. When I do that, I'm just going to double click on the eye to get inside that group. Then I'm going to deselect everything over here, and again I'm in isolation mode of that group because I can see it here. Select the eyelid, and I'm just going to turn these radiuses back down to where they started at 0. I need to double click again, then select the next eye, double click on that, deselect, select just the eyelid, and close that up. Next, I'm going to double click again to get outside of isolation mode. So at frame 15 on the eyes layer, they're now shut. So I've got the eyes open, got the eyes shut. I'm going to use my option drag trick just a couple times here to make the eyes blink a little. Again, we could go over here and insert a new keyframe and then go ahead and open those back up. But what I'd rather do is just kind of make it flash back and forth a little. So they're open to here, they're shut. I'm going to option drag the first keyframe of the eyes and give it just a little frame span where they're shut, then they open back up. Then I'm going to double click to select the frame span of when they're shut, hold the option key when I click and drag, and shut them again. And of course, at some point I want my fish to be awake again, so I'm going to find the frame span where they're open. I'm just going to option drag that first keyframe over a little bit, and if we preview our animation, the eyes blink. So we're just changing what artwork lives at what point in time, basically, when we do keyframe based animation. I'm going to continue to do this for all the elements of my fish. And again, at some point, your timeline may look a little bit like this, where you've got different speeds, different things going on. I'm not going to go through and do the left fin, right fin all the way across, but I'm just going to show you the quick way that I did that. Basically, just like we did with the top fin, I'm going to just use the right fin here, which is, and to unlock it so I can actually use it. Notice right fin, I'm actually going to again use my transform tool make sure that my rotation point is closer to the center where I want it to rotate from. And it's just a matter of duplicating the keyframe, right click, insert keyframe to get another piece of that art, change what the art looks like, right click, insert keyframe, duplicate that piece of art, go to the next one. But I like to do the option drag thing, and it gets tedious, but like I said, it's quite effective. There are some other efficient ways we can do this to take some of the choppiness out, but this is a good way to do it to start. Same with the left fin, we could do the same thing. Unlock that layer, select it, make sure on the left fin here we've got the transform point put in the center, and again, start straight. I'm just going to hold the option key to create another duplicate of that straight fin, and then start to raise it. And actually, in my animation I wanted them not to be exactly perfect, so I think I made this first one actually start a little bit later. So I'm just going to click and drag the second keyframe now over a few to create and extend the frame span of the first one where it's straight across, so that the left fin doesn't start moving till the right fin moved a little bit. I didn't want it to look too robotic. It looks robotic enough just with the nature of keyframe based animation and sometimes how jumpy things get. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Keep going with the left fin. And again, I'm option dragging these to create a duplicate of the previous one. Get the idea. So we got waving fins. We got blinking eyes. We had blinking eyes. There they are. And we've got a top fin that's kind of bopping to the left now if we continued on with this process to make it bop over to the right. Again, maybe just option drag this over and then start to move it. Oops. Over here. And the bigger the jump in the position of your artwork, the bigger the jump you're going to see in the animation at this point. And maybe we just go back somehow and maybe even get it back to center. That would be kind of amazing. Alright, so if I zoom out, notice that the only time we can see the artwork of our animation is when there's actually gray keyframes. All these blank frames in here and all these other layers, we can't see those parts of our fish anymore because there's no artwork there. Artwork only exists where you see keyframes or frame spans. So with the body, we're going to make that body blow up a little bit. Not literally, by blow up I mean grow. So let's unlock the body layer. I'm going to select it, and I've got the registration point from the center, which is completely perfect where I want it. I'm going to start where it's small, and I'm going to maybe, instead of 5s, do 10s. So I'm going to option drag, make a duplicate of the body, free transform it, and I don't know what I just did there. Well, just to keep moving, I'm just going to move it a little to the left, a little to the right. That's okay. We get the idea. Move it 10 more. A little to the left here, a little to the right. And I'm just using this registration point as my mark up and down this guide here. And now it starts regular size. It grows a little bit, grows a lot. I'm going to extend this back and insert a frame there to make it extend where it's at its biggest point. And then I'm actually going to do a fun little trick where I want this part of the animation here to be the exact same as this. So I'm going to double click on this frame span, hold my option key and move that whole frame span over. But now the problem is it goes middle, big, middle, and then if we go here, we can double click that, option drag that frame span, and it goes back to regular size. Problem is now in our animation, because we've got one extra frame sticking out, that one piece of artwork is now extending our entire animation out that little bit. So we actually need to remove this frame. Again, right click on, remove the frame. Now everything's shortened up and our animation is back at 48 frames. If I hit Command Z to undo, can I undo that? Thought I could. There we go. And if I didn't right click and remove frame, but I actually just right clicked and cleared the frame, notice it gives me a blank keyframe and it still extends my animation. So even if you have a blank keyframe, your animation will still be extended by default. So if I were to publish this and watch it, all of a sudden there's this flash of blank. That's from that one keyframe. If I take that keyframe and remove it, publish by hitting Command Return, that flash of white is now gone. But of course, because I didn't animate the tail or the mouth yet, and also my fins don't extend all the way across to frame 48, they disappear at some point. So basically the user can only see, again, where the frames and keyframes are located. Just for fun, let's go ahead and unlock the tail layer. Again, I'm going to keep that registration point to the side. I want my tail to kind of sway back and forth in the background, and I might use something like the top fin where I go every 5, because I don't need to be too smooth. I'm more worried about smoothness in my fins. The tail is going to be a little bit choppier, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to option drag the tail keyframe, move it over to the 5th, then I'm going to just scale it in, option drag to the 5th, next 5th, scale it in, option drag the tail there, move it in a little bit more, so on and so forth. Basically now I'm just going to wait until it's hidden. I'm just going to ballpark and say maybe it's going to be hidden for 10 frames worth of the animation. So I'm going to right click over here and insert the frame to extend it where it's hidden. And you know what? Let's go ahead and just option drag this one keyframe over, not the whole frame span. Move that. And now when we select that keyframe, we have that piece of art. Let's just go ahead and pull it across and to create a reflection. Option drag again. Move it over, option drag again, move it over, option drag again, move it over, and actually I'm going to move it in, maybe option drag, just so it's hidden. A little bit choppy, but eventually the tails go back and forth, and I would smooth that out so that it ended back where it started and create something called looping, but we're going to worry more about that once we get into something called motion tweening. So I'm going to stop that. Let's see, what else should we do? The mouth, same thing as the body, just as the body grows. So I'm going to copy kind of where the body is. I'm going to option drag on the mouth layer. First I've got to unlock it. And as the body grows, I'm going to hold shift. Get my keyboard commands here, shift option to grow it from the middle a little bit, option drag the keyframe to match the body. When the body grows, so too does the mouth. Option drag, whoop, shrunk back down, option drag, shrink back down a little bit more, and I want it to be the same size it started, so I'm just going to option drag the very first one all the way to the end here and insert a frame. So basically publishing the movie, you get the idea. We just need to change how the artwork looks over time to see what the user sees. Now, what I do want you to take a look at is I'm actually going to start my finished one and publish that so you guys can see. One, take a look at the timeline. Notice how there's larger gaps in some and smaller gaps in others. When I publish this, look at how smooth the side fins are, and look at how choppy the body movement and the top fin is. So the key to smooth animation is the less movement between keyframes and frame spans there are, the better. The longer the gap, the the jumpier the transition. So here is a real basic intro to keyframes, keyframe animation. If you remember anything, remember when you right click on keyframes, you get tons of options. You can copy them, paste them. You can even insert and remove. Remember, remove is different than clear. Removing frames gets rid of it. Clearing it just clears the keyframe of any artwork, but it keeps the keyframe there in its entirety. There's also other options such as reverse that we're going to use when we start doing motion tweening, copying motion, pasting motion, and a lot of other stuff. So the core to animation is to understand keyframing. Moving forward, we're going to use more efficient ways to make that happen. So thanks for hanging out once again, and we'll see you next time when we talk about symbols. See you later.